In Kentucky, we don't just take chances, we bet big. This January, I'm sitting down with 4 Kentuckians who made 4 bold moves and asking one question: what was the biggest bet that you ever made on yourself? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Town & Country Ford. So wherever life's adventures may lead you, Town & Country Ford is along for the ride. What was your first experience being exposed to horse racing?
I mean, horses are just special creatures. There's no other animal that we have that kind of bond with.
When there's pain down in there, they feel it and they sense it.
Our biggest thing we do is we negotiate all the contracts with the racetracks.
You're letting people know about what your race will be about. My next guest is a true Kentucky original. He knows what it means to take a long shot to the Kentucky Derby, and now he's jumping into the biggest race of his life, the race for the Kentucky Senate, for the U.S. Senate to replace Senator Mitch McConnell. Dale Romans joins me now. Dale, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. This is my first long-form interview.
Hey, here we go, right?
As a politician, yes. Let's
As
do
a
this.
politician, I mean, are you still kind of pinching yourself that when people introduce you now, it's, legendary horse trainer Dale Romans, who is now running
What gets me
for the
where I
U.S.
go,
Senate.
people are yelling senator at me. I said, you're a little premature. Let's hopefully you're doing that in another year.
Well, let's take it back to the beginning, because who you are and how you grew up outside of Louisville, Kentucky and Shively really has become kind of the fabric of what you're letting people know about what your race will be about. So what was life growing up in Shively?
Shively is a great place to grow up. I mean, it's lower middle class, I might say. It was when I was a kid. I was a single mother with raising 3 boys, and my father trained horses, so they were divorced, but he was out running around the country most of the time, so she did it on her own. And I think what will help me in Washington is the array of life I've lived across the spectrum, and starting out there and knowing what the struggles of a single mother living paycheck to paycheck and what it took for her to get by and raise 3 boys on her own. And then we got out of Shively. We went to Butler High School and got the best education I could. But, in 2nd grade, I was diagnosed severely dyslexic, and school was really hard for me. My brothers both went to a traditional program. I was in there 2 weeks, and they called my mother and said I wasn't traditional material, and went back to the regular public schools and went to Butler High School. But it worked for me. She wouldn't let me slip through the cracks and made sure that I got all the help that I could get.
What was your first experience being exposed to horse racing? Was it your dad, or was it your own love and passion that just kind of sparked that interest of this is what I want to do with my life?
I've been lucky in life. I cannot remember ever wanting to do anything but what I'm doing today.
That's awesome.
And I'm in Barn 4 at Churchill Downs, and that's where I've been my whole career. And my mother told me the first time she took me in there, I was 9 months old. She carried me in to pet a horse. So there's been a Romans for over 60 years in Barn 4 at Churchill Downs.
What do you think people misunderstand the most about the racing industry, about thoroughbred racing?
Well, we get a lot of backlash from PETA people and stuff, how the horses, horse racing kills horses and stuff. But if you look at the numbers, it really doesn't. We take great care of these horses. And, there's a lot of people back there who could make a lot of money doing other things, but we're back there because we actually have a love for the horse. And we want to take care of it. Horses are fragile animals, and they do get hurt, but they get hurt in the fields. They get hurt on trail rides. It's just a fact of who they are. And we do everything we can, and that's a big responsibility we have, is to keep them as healthy as possible and keep this game moving forward.
Mm-hmm. What's the most important thing you've ever learned from a horse?
Oh, they can teach you everything. I'll tell you, when I was a kid, and I say school was so hard, and I really struggled with learning disabilities and problems, and I never felt comfortable at school. But I can remember at 10 years old going to the barn and walking horses, and I was in my element. And it was almost like they would talk to me through the end of the shank as I led them around there. And early on, I felt like I could do anything with a racehorse, with any horse, and except for ride them. People can't believe I never rode horses.
You don't, do you like to ride horses at all?
Never liked to ride them, even when I was a kid. I want to be around them. I do anything you can with any horse. I don't care how wild it is when I'm on the ground. But I never felt good on their back. And, my wife's a jockey, but I never wanted to be up there riding a horse. But I could do anything with them. And it's just, they're using them in therapy a lot now for autism. And even there's a big program over in Lexington for alcoholic substance abuse users that are going through a program.
Is it Stable Recovery?
Stable Recovery.
Amazing program.
It's an amazing program. And that's another thing. I've struggled myself with addictions, and alcoholism. But that's one thing I want to work on when we get to Washington is that we start doing these programs a lot better for rehabs. I've been through the system, and I know it worked for me, but I think out of my class, I'm the only one that still stayed sober that I've stayed in contact with. And there's something wrong when those things keep reoccurring over and over and over, and you have programs in place that are rewarded by failure because they get repeat customers. And you look at what Stable Recovery is doing, and it's getting it right. And I think we really need to promote that more and more, the way they're doing it and using the horses. I mean, horses are just special creatures. There's no other animal that we have that kind of bond with. And everybody loves a horse.
It's almost like they understand the pain that you're going through. When there's pain down in there, they feel it and they sense it.
They can absolutely read you. And it is incredible. And their memories are incredible. And they know who different people are. I'm convinced of that when you go up and talk to them or pet them. And I think they're the best judges of character.
You've had an incredible career. I mean, when you think, 12 Kentucky Derby horses?
Yeah, we've run 12 and 11 different races. We're in 2 1 year in the race. We've gotten close a couple of times. And I tell everybody, I know what it feels like to think you're going to win the Kentucky Derby. Shackelford took the lead at the 8th pole before he got caught, and he went on to win the Preakness. But, yeah, I know what it feels like to think you're going to win it, but we didn't get it. And one of these days, hopefully one comes along because that's the pinnacle of everything.
It sure is. What is it like to prepare for that week when you know you have a contender where a long shot can win, things have to fall into place, anything can happen that week? What is it like to go through the excitement and the ups and downs of being in the Kentucky Derby?
It really starts way before the week of the Kentucky Derby. You know, there's 20,000 horses born a year, and 20 will make it into the starting gate of the Kentucky Derby. So those numbers are just off the charts. So you know how lucky you are when you get in. And it's every decision you make from the time you take control of the horse will decide whether or not you're going to get there. And it may be early in their 2-year-old year. If you decide, this horse shouldn't train today, he's got a little bit of an issue, I need to back off, or the timing of everything you do, the pressure of getting all the way to Kentucky Derby is always in the back of your mind when you have a young horse in the barn. I like to say every one of them's a Derby horse till they're not, because we're pointing that way. And then you get them, they go break their maidens, they win, they show a little promise, show they want to run the distance, and you start looking at points races. You got to collect enough points to get into the Derby, and that's a stressful situation. You got to pick the right spots along the way when they step into stakes programs to get enough points to be one of the 20 that's left. And when, about 2 weeks out, this field's all set, who's going to be in the race, and if you're in there, then this pressure really comes. You've been back there. You know how the press.
Man.
And I really think I messed up my first Derby horse. I said I would never do it again. I felt like I started training the way the press wanted me to. I was a rookie to it, and I was one of the first really good horses I had. And I kind of gave in to what I thought the press was going to write, what they're going to say, instead of just doing what I do every day and what works for me, which may be a little bit different than what other people think should happen or shouldn't happen. I didn't let that ever affect me again. I said, that will never bother me again. I will try to shut out the noise. But, when you were a trainer...
That is really hard to do back there. That is so hard. The media pressure and the eyes on the Kentucky Derby and the people. I always was amazed, the celebrities that would just show up backside to watch a workout, and then every detail of one workout would be completely overanalyzed by anybody.
Overanalyzed, and I just quit watching all the press and stuff. But you've been back there, you've seen it. You're put on a pedestal for 2 weeks basically back there. Everybody wants a piece of your time. Everybody's wanting to talk to you. Every shows want you to come and talk on their radio and it really is a boost to your ego. But there's nothing worse or lonelier than walking back after the Kentucky Derby when you haven't won. And I've had a couple horses run really big, been third a few times, fourth, fifth, right there. But they only want to talk to the winner.
That's
and you're
right.
walking back all by yourself. It's a lonely feeling afterwards. So,
well, you've placed a lot of attention into some really great things as well. Like, it's been important for you. You're the president of the Kentucky Horsemen's Benevolent and Protection Group. Why is that so important to be a part of that? And for people that may not be familiar, what do they do? And why is it so important what they do?
Well, HPPA, we have about 4,000 members, and it's and I am the president now. I was the vice president for about 30 years. But it's basically a union on the backside, and we try to take care of all the benevolence for the backside workers, provide some bit of insurance, and if they have any problems that we can help them with. Those are the grooms, the hind walkers, the exercise riders. Our biggest thing we do is we negotiate all the contracts with the racetracks because, as great as Churchill Downs is, as much as I love them, they aren't going to put all the purse money up if they don't have to. So we have to sit down and negotiate those types of things. And any problem that comes up, whether it's the racing service we think is getting bad, we go to them. We have a great relationship now with the management of Churchill Downs, and they own 3 of the major racetracks in Kentucky. And so we worked hand in hand. I just left lunch with a couple of executives a little while ago, and we were talking about issues that may come up next year and what we're going to do about them. And it just makes us all work together, and it all flows. And really proud of how we've done in Kentucky with the purse structure that we have here. We've always been the breeding capital of the world, but now we are truly the racing capital of the world, too. We have the best purses in the country, the best horses, the best trainers, the best jockeys. And it's a lot of work that the HVPA and the management have done together to get there. And Frankfurt. Frankfurt's a big piece of it. It's great to come from a state that recognizes how important horse racing is to them.
That's not happening in a lot of states. You're seeing a lot of states take a lot of steps back, that it doesn't feel like there's great protection around the horsemen, the jockeys, the entire community, not even supporting the industry in that state.
It is, and it's incredible because it could be so positive for all of them. And a lot of them are getting subsidized by those casinos that come in and get involved. We call them racinos now, the racetracks and casinos combined. And, we have that here in Kentucky. But Kentucky has also grown their pari-mutuel side along with it and made their racing better. And it's one of the few states that's done it. A lot of states kind of see horse racing, I think, as a necessary evil that they have to have in order to have their casino license. And it's really bad because I think if they looked at it differently, they'd see what we got going on here in Kentucky and how good the racing could be to go right hand in hand with the racino. They work well together.
Not just helping the racing, but when you look at the communities, how it helps employment in those communities, how it helps tourism, how it affects restaurants grow. Do you see kind of a trickle-down effect of what that has in that community?
It's huge. It's huge. Just think of the economic impact of one weekend to the city of Louisville and the state of Kentucky. It's incredible. But even at a smaller scale, if you were at Ellis Park in Henderson, Kentucky, what it does when we go down there for 2 months a year for that town, like you said, all the restaurants, all the people that come in, out-of-town money comes there and spends their money. And there's a lot that goes into keeping a racetrack open, and there's a lot of people involved, and they all are productive citizens of that community when they're there.
Yeah. All right, pause here because I know when we come back, brief break, we're going to talk about one of the biggest races of your life, kind of the Kentucky Derby of all Kentucky Derbies.
Yes.
You've been asked to be a part of that, and I'm interested to kind of peel back your thoughts on that and how it's going so far. I grew up in a Ford family. My dad worked at the Louisville Ford assembly plant. So growing up, it wasn't just a brand, it was a part of our life. And that's the thing about Town and Country Ford. It is woven into the fabric of not only who we are in Kentucky, but who we are across America. So wherever life's adventures may lead you, big, small, or totally unexpected, they're there. Welcome back. I'm sitting down with Dale Romans, legendary horse trainer, talking about his years in the industry. But here recently, you've been asked to jump in one of the biggest races, and not one that's on the dirt or the turf, one that's one of the biggest races in Kentucky, the U.S. Senate race. How did that call for you to join that race actually go down?
Well, like we were talking a second ago, I've been involved politically a lot. I've been to Washington a lot of times, been on Capitol Hill discussing horse racing issues, in Frankfurt a lot, dealing with a lot of stuff inside Kentucky. And politics has always been a kind of a side gig from behind the scenes. And then when Mitch McConnell decided he wasn't going to run again, and there was an open seat here, I called the governor. He didn't call me. I was straight at it. I called the governor. He's a friend, and I asked him what he thought about it. And I thought he would just say, well, you're crazy. There's no chance. Don't even think about it. But he didn't hesitate. He said, I don't know why you wouldn't. He said, in Kentucky, you've got deep roots. You have a little bit of name recognition, and you can connect with the people of Kentucky, and you don't have a voting record. He said, that's the kind of Democrat that might be able to win. So just throw your name in there and see what happens. And, he went on to tell me, and a couple other politicians, Crit Llewellyn, one of the great politicians, Lieutenant Governor of Kentucky, I called her and talked to her about it. And she said, win, lose, or draw, it's going to enrich your life. You're going to get out there and you're going to meet people you would have never met. You're going to get to understand Kentucky and Kentuckians even more than you do right now. So we go into it and have fun doing it. It's going to enrich your life and you'll enjoy it. And so I thought, why not? We'll give it a shot. And I've jumped in.
It's off to a great start. I mean, just within a matter of weeks, I think you defied expectations with fundraising goals. Were you surprised by fundraising and by support from people saying, yeah, Dale, I'm going to support you?
I am very pleasantly surprised. Fundraising has been the hardest part of it.
That's why I hear everybody say that. That's like the one thing that when people I don't think people realize like how much money it takes to not only, I mean, my gosh, be in a local Senate race. Say you want to be like, Kentucky State Senate compared to the U.S. Senate. That's a tremendous time that's placed into that. It's incredible.
And it's really a shame because it probably keeps a lot of qualified people from running. And I don't know if I was just that naive, but I was surprised at the amount of money that it was going to take. And, I had no problem calling somebody up and asking them to go spend $1 million at Keeneland, let's buy some racehorses.
Right.
But when you call and ask them to invest in you, it's a little bit different. But I have been pleasantly surprised about how many people have jumped in and donated and been supportive when I get out in the community. Like one of the best things, one of the first people to invest with me is Todd Pletcher, which is, the nation's leading trainer, perennial leading trainer. I saw him at Breeders' Cup, and he just said, what can I do to help? And I said, well, here's the limits. Here's what you can give. And he said, well, can me and my wife both give that? I said, yeah, he's the first one that maxed out with both of them to help. And I think, you do a lot of stuff for free, like the HVPA stuff and the Racing Commission things and working on different boards to try to promote Kentucky and horse racing. You don't realize how many people really are watching and understand, and it made me feel good. Yeah. And then just walking around at Churchill during the races, fans, people I don't know, a lot of them come up and say, I'm a Republican, but I think you're a Democrat I can vote for. And that so far has been very rewarding. And, if we don't win, I think we will, but if something happens we don't, it's going to be a pleasant year that I'm going to have a lot of fun and get to meet a lot of people.
You made a point to speak out first saying, I'm running as an independent Democrat. Why was it important for you to say that, and what exactly does that mean?
Well, for one, I wanted people to ask me what it meant.
You're right.
It's basically a centrist Democrat.
Yeah.
But Senator Joe Manchin, I talked to him too before I ran because I always had a lot of respect for him in Washington, that he was a Democrat from a red state that voted the way his conscience took him. He didn't vote party line. He voted for what he thought was for the best for the state of West Virginia. And so when we were talking, he said, I'm an independent now. He said, but I always ran as an independent Democrat. And what that means is you're independent of the party. Because you're coming from a red state, they can't retaliate if you don't join and fall in the ranks. They can't run against you. They can't primary because they want that seat so bad they're afraid to lose it. So you can go up there and do what's best for Kentucky. That's going to be another theme of my campaign is going to be there's too much fighting going on. I don't want to fight. I want to fix things. And I'll go up there and work with anybody. If we can get something done that's going to help the people of Kentucky, let's do it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the president's his policies or the way he acts or treats people, but he is the president of the United States, and if I got an opportunity to work for him to do something that's best for Kentucky, I want to do it. I'm not going to just say no to everything that comes down the line, and I think that will make me independent of the total Democratic Party.
When you look at the group that you've represented for years, the equine industry in Kentucky, we're talking about, $6.5 billion annually that the horse racing industry brings to Kentucky. It supports more than 60,000 jobs across Kentucky, probably more than that. That's a big community that really needs things done right in Kentucky to ensure that money is going to continue to come into Kentucky. I feel like there's a lot on the line for the horse racing community that they would want someone, and you may be hearing that, they want somebody to represent their interests because it's a lot of money at stake.
There is a lot of money at stake for Kentucky, and they have rallied behind me. But the state's big. You need a lot more than inside the industry. And I think that 60,000 number is probably very small if you count all the ancillary businesses around horse racing that it's important for. But I've gotten a lot of support from horse racing, and now we're out meeting other people out in the state. I want to go to Eastern Kentucky and Western Kentucky. I want to hit every place there is in Kentucky. I know I've got a little name recognition in Louisville and Central Kentucky around Lexington, but I want to represent all of Kentucky. And I think when you do that, representing the horse business is big, but there's other things. I mean, the tariffs are killing the bourbon industry here in Kentucky. The Medicaid cuts are going to be huge to Kentucky. We have a lot of rural hospitals. And I think a lot of people are confused about Medicaid cuts. You think you're cutting someone off from getting a Medicaid check that probably doesn't need it. Well, it's much, much deeper than that. Those hospitals get paid by that Medicaid. When someone shows up at the hospital that doesn't have insurance, you're not going to let them sit on the curb and die. They go ahead and treat them and take care of them. But if they're not getting paid, they can't stay in business. It's a for-profit thing. And then kicking everybody off their insurances, that's really going to affect Kentucky. And James Carville, he was helping me too. I talked to him a little bit before I ever ran.
What is he like to get advice from? What did he say?
He's exactly what you see on TV.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing person and so smart that it's incredible. And he told me, he said he really believes that Kentucky is going to be impacted by some of the things this administration has done bigger than any state in the country. And one of the big ones is Medicaid cut and the not extending the tax credits so everybody can stay on the Affordable Care Act, and insurance is going up. And he really believes that Kentucky could be impacted. Early next year, he thinks that Kentucky will start feeling it, and it'll probably just get worse. And by the November election, anything could happen.
One thing that was going to be in the crosshairs that truly does impact also the horse racing business is immigration. And you have a very different take as to what needs to happen with regards to immigration. I mean, do you agree that like immigration and the way we've handled immigration to this country, it needs to be fixed?
Immigration,
and you don't deny that.
I don't deny it at all. And I think immigration is a big problem that we have in this country, but I think of it differently than you see on TV. I mean, I deal with it on a daily basis, working people on visas that are an immigrant workforce. It's basically all we have in the horse racing business, whether it be on the farms or on the racetracks, because these are jobs that are difficult manual labor jobs that Americans don't have to do. There's so much opportunity here. We're at about 4% unemployment. You can't go much lower than that. And so what do we do if we take 11 million people out? And there's such a misnomer that there are all these criminals and drug dealers and murderers and different things. We all agree those people should go. But instead of deporting, we should be documenting the people who are here that are contributing. And we have a plan to do that. I've worked with this immigration coalition out of Chicago for a long time on trying to reform the immigration policies. One of the reasons a lot of them are here illegal is we just have a whole messed up system. The whole immigration thing needs to be fixed. And that's why we go to Washington and sell out of Capitol to get that right. Now, I think the administration has done a good job of shutting down the border. We all agree that we want the criminals, the murderers, the drug dealers out of the country, but that's a very small percentage of the undocumented worker that's in America. Most of them are paying taxes. Mm-hmm. Most of them are very productive. And you can tie that to affordability, because if you can only pick half your crops, you're going to have to double your prices. If you can only milk half your cows, you're going to have to double your prices. And I think a lot of affordability is connected to labor force, but it's backwards now. In my business as a trainer, I have to apply for visas. I don't know if I'm going to get them every year. So how do you expand and grow your business without knowing if you're going to have the labor force every year that you need? And then I have to go to Central South America and find people that want these visas. Then they have to go to the consulate and get approved, and then they can come here and they can stay for 10 months and they have to turn around and go. Well, the horse has got to eat 12 months a year. It's a major issue. And my plan would be to fix immigration. You turn it into almost a temp service where anyone in the world can apply, whether you be a doctor or a scientist, so we get the brightest and the best in the world to come in and be doctors and scientists in spots that we don't have the right people, or a day worker like I have out at Churchill Downs that's a manual labor guy that works 7 days a week, gets there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Drug dealers and criminals don't get to work at 4 o'clock in the morning. They can all apply to the immigration. And then as an employer, all I do is prove that I can't hire an American, which we always try to do. We run ads. We do everything we can. We can't fill the slots. So you would apply to the immigration department, say, I need 20 employees. They say, here, we've got 20 that are already vetted. You can have these 20 now. But until we got to that point, I think it would be an easy fix for us if we went, and anybody who's here now that can be sponsored by an employer, that can be past the vetting process, that we give them a work permit. We're not talking about a path to citizenship. We're simply talking about a work permit that they can work here. If I prove that an American doesn't want the job, that I can't fill that role, and there's someone here that will do it, let's document those people. And what that does is pull all the good immigrants out of the shadows, and anybody who can't follow through that process doesn't need to be here. We send ICE after them, get them out of the country. And I think it's not that difficult to fix. And I think both sides, Republicans and Democrats, agree that we need this labor force, that it can be fixed. I was in Washington in March, and I sat down with Mitch McConnell for about an hour and a half. And it was a very candid discussion. And at the end of my spiel, which I basically just gave now, he says, I got good news and bad news. I agree with you 100%. He said, but everything has to go through the White House now. And you've got to go convince Stephen Miller, and he's tough to convince for anything. So, but he said his wife was an immigrant and ended up working for 2 presidents. If we track back far enough, we're all immigrants. And there's a lot of really good people. And if you watch Fox or CNN, either one, you think that every crime in this country is committed by an illegal immigrant. Well, it's really a very small percentage of the crimes are. If we round up all 11 million and kick them out of the country, we're still going to have crime.
You think that there's room for compromise here? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be let's round up everybody or let's let everybody in. And do you think that's something that the White House would listen to? Do you think that you could negotiate with them and say, hey, here's a compromise if you are a senator from Kentucky?
I think so. I've been as far already as to have a meeting with Brooke Rollins, the Agriculture Secretary, and she was on board with our plan. But we haven't been able to get into the Oval Office and really sit down and talk about it. And when I was talking to Senator McConnell, he said, well, if you get to the president and you're sitting there, all you want to do is stick to business because that's all he cares about, and point out how business needs this labor force. And you're not taking American jobs. And these will be people who are vetted, paying their taxes, and are contributing to society. You know, in 2022, they said there was something like $25 billion that was paid into the Social Security system by undocumented workers that they'll never apply for the benefits. So you just think as tight as Social Security is, take $25 billion more out of it and set it aside. But these people never pay. But in our plan, they would be paying their taxes, they'd be paying into Social Security, and they would never see the benefits from it. But they're only here to feed their families back home. You know, we keep them all south of the border, and they pick the coffee, they pick the fruits, and they send them to this country, and they do it at a cheap $5 a day to pick coffee in Guatemala, and they can't take care of their families, but we get to drink a cheap cup of coffee. And to me, that's just fundamentally not right.
You mentioned one of the biggest kind of wake-up calls with jumping in a U.S. Senate race is fundraising. Are there other things that have come up along the way that you're like making a platform, deciding like what are the key issues? Are there other things that have come up to you that you're like, this is crazy. This is crazy that we're doing this. Never thought in a million years I would be doing this.
There's been some mornings I woke up and they've got a list of things for me to do today, which everybody knows nothing starts till after 11 o'clock because I got to train my horses, take care of that. That's my happy place. And then I'll go out and do a lot of stuff. And sometimes a couple of days it's felt a little bit overwhelming, but it's also kind of rewarding when you get out and talk to the right people and you hear the right things. And you know, I've been saying everywhere I go, I know as a freshman senator, you're not going to go in there and settle any wars or do anything, but I think there's these micro things that I really think are important to the state of Kentucky and to Kentuckians that you can go in there and sell your political clout for. One being immigration reform, which you can tie that to affordability, so we're keeping things at a reasonable price. And the other one is, of course, education, which I talked about being dyslexic and having so much trouble in school. You know, I got out of high school, that was all. But I don't have any formal education after that. Both my brothers have advanced degrees, are very successful people. It just didn't work for me. But I look back on it, and I think we could bring education in the 21st century. If I had an iPad that I could work off of back when I was in grade school, and I could watch documentary videos that were interesting to me, then I could have told you everything that happened in that documentary. But you give me a book on the same subject and tell me to read it and write a book report, it would have been impossible. And I think for all the kids out there that are like me, that learn differently, back then we called it learning disabilities. I wasn't disabled at all. I just needed to be educated differently. And we can do it today with the technologies we have. And I would love to see Kentucky go to certain areas in Kentucky and be test grounds to teaching kids in a little different form. We're always going to need reading, writing, arithmetic. Everybody's going to need to learn to read, but we can put knowledge into kids' brains a lot differently than we used to back in the 1900s when I was a kid. That's an issue that I'm interested in. And of course, healthcare. Healthcare is a big thing. You know, ever since the Affordable Care Act was put in place, we hear repeal and replace, repeal and replace. To me, that just doesn't make sense. It's backwards from the beginning. If you're going to replace, you got to replace first and then repeal. And if someone in a Republican Party comes up and has a great idea for healthcare for the country, let's enact it immediately. But we can't take people off of the healthcare system we're using now during the gap until we get another one up and running. So let's stop saying repeal and replace. Let's say replace, then repeal the Affordable Care Act. And, you know, there's tax credits now that are allowing people to stay on. That wasn't an original part of the Affordable Care Act. I don't think people really understand that. That was an expansion during the COVID years that the government came up with to make sure more people were covered on insurance. But it's been successful, and it's why it twilighted after at the end of this year. And the big argument in Washington is whether or not to extend it. Well, I don't think anybody's really felt negative effects of it, but you will if it's not extended. And the pool shrinks of people who are inside the uninsurance policies, and everybody's going to have to pay more. You're really going to feel the negative effects. So in my plan, I think we should extend it while we're working on a better system. If we don't like the Affordable Care Act, if it's that bad, let's come up with something different. But it's been 12 years, and we still haven't come up with anything different. You keep hearing that there's going to be a plan, there's going to be a plan. But I also think you could put a lot of smart people in a room that don't have a special interest, that aren't part of the insurance companies, that aren't part of the medical fields, and figure out a way that every American is covered on insurance.
Dale, everybody always says about you, I told people I'm going to have Dale on the podcast and say, he's such a nice guy. Such a nice guy. He's done so much for racing. He's a good person. And then they'll ask question number 2, but how is he going to manage that race? He's such a nice person. How are you going to handle the mudslinging and the inevitable negativity that may come with a race like that? And how do you balance that to continue to show the true person that you are?
Well, I think my Derby Week horse training is going to help. I'm going to try to block out that white noise. And I mean, they can knock me all they want. They can talk about me. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And that's not going to bother me. I don't read the comments at the end of our social media stuff. So if you're writing something negative, don't worry about it. I saw my son read me one the other day, said he was in a fight on the backside not too long ago. He doesn't have a college degree. And there was one other one. I can't remember what the last thing was that was negative about me. And says, well, I'm too old to fight now. And I do have a PhD in life. So I'm going to do what I can.
I think that's going to go a far way. I don't think people realize, too, how tough the horse racing industry is. It's tough. It's tough business and some tough people. And when I tell people just the time that I've worked in it and been around it, man, it's brutal. And I love it, but people don't realize. You better be tough.
You better be tough.
Get on your big girl
pants. Be able to stand up for yourself. And, I've been doing it 40 years. And I don't think that they can hit me with much of anything in politics that I haven't already been hit with, and I'll continue to do what I do the way I do it. Don't think kindness is weakness.
You're right.
I mean, I think I'm a strong person.
I think people are tired of just hearing the muck back and forth because it distracts from the issues that need to be talked about.
It really does. And I have nothing negative to say about anybody. Anybody who's willing to throw their hat in the ring, more power to them. Mm-hmm. I just think that I have a good plan, good ideas, and good things, and good life experiences that I can take to Capitol Hill and turn around and help the people of Kentucky and the people of this country. So I told my whole team, we're not going negative on anybody. I don't know them. I don't know these people to talk bad about them. They both all have families at home. Leave them alone. Let's just go out there and tell our story, try to connect to the people. And if they like what we're selling, then they'll buy us and vote for us, in May and then next November.
So what is the best bet that you've made for yourself in recent years? The bet that you placed on yourself that maybe people would have thought, that's a terrible idea, Dale, but it's ended up working for you?
I don't know in recent years. I'd say in the back years was when I started training horses. Kentucky wasn't the Mecca. There was more New York and then Florida. And when I decided to venture out and try the big boys in New York, go to Saratoga in the summer, I remember I was pulling out of the gate with 6 horses, and my father told me, people like us don't win at Saratoga. And I thought, well, I got nothing to lose.
Right.
Let's try. It's like politics. I got nothing to lose. I just go back to work what I do if I lose. And there's not much mudslinging, more mudslinging they can do than they haven't done in the horse business. But we drove out the gate that summer 32 years ago, and I won 3 races with 6 horses at Saratoga, and my career just took off. And that was a bet on myself.
There you go.
And this is kind of a bet on myself and a bet for Kentucky. But then there's other things that have happened in my life in recent times that have really set me up to make this run. You remember, I used to be really big. I was almost 400 pounds. And I've had gastric sleeve surgery. In the last 3 years, I've lost over 150 pounds. And I put health as a big priority in my life. I used to drink way too much, as we talked about earlier. And I decided to go to rehab, and I bought into it. And I'm a recovering alcoholic. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But it's a chronic disease. And it's another platform I want to work on, like we talked about, is fixing the rehab system. So I really
that's
got
a message with East Kentucky. We've got an opioid
strong
epidemic.
Message with East Kentucky, and the opioid epidemic took over, and that led to heroin when they stopped making the opioids. And then alcohol is always a problem. It's the only drug that we advertise out there, and some people can handle it, but there's others that have a disease like I do that one drink leads to way too many, and we need to work on that for people. So I've gotten myself into a good spot to do something and give back to Kentucky. A lot of people have helped me from this state along the way. They pulled me up through my education, through my career building, through my rehabilitation. And my kids are grown. I got 2 great kids. Tammy and I live a good life. And it's time that I think, I know how corny it sounds, but I really want to go back, want to go to Washington and give back to the state of Kentucky that's been so good to me.
Dale, it is a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show.
But thank you, Claudia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching the podcast. If you felt inspired, please leave a comment, send this over to a friend, and don't forget to subscribe and get the word out. If you're following over on Instagram, be sure to follow the Best Bet Pod for all the behind the scenes action. And you can catch us on all the other streaming platforms from Spotify to Apple. And if you're on Apple, please leave a 5-star review because that's how I can get the word out about the podcast. So until then, I'll see you right back here next week.